I was 27 when I first noticed the hands in Jamie's drawings. Not just any hands, these were distinct, oversized, with long fingers that bent at eerie, unnatural angles, always reaching toward a small, crouched figure. My brother had been sketching versions of this same scene for nearly 6 years, ever since the accident that took his voice when he was 10. But this was the first time I realized whose hands they were. And in that moment, I couldn't breathe. The box of Jamie's drawings rested heavily on my lap. Mom had asked me to clear out some storage in the attic while I was home for the weekend, and I'd stumbled across several of Jamie's old portfolios tucked beneath a pile of dusty Christmas decorations. I hadn't planned to go through all of them. It started with casual curiosity about how his art had evolved over the years. Jamie was 16 now, and despite everything, his talent was undeniable. After the boating accident that left Jamie unable to speak, our family had settled into a fragile sense of normal. The doctors called it selective mutism brought on by trauma, though they couldn't completely rule out damage to his vocal cords. Either way, the outcome was the same. My once talkative little brother hadn't uttered a single word since that day on the lake. I'd been away at college when it happened, a fact that still ate at me in quiet moments. Maybe if I'd been home instead of buried in final exams, I would have seen the danger sooner. The earliest drawings in the box were what you'd expect from a child grappling with trauma. Dark, chaotic scribbles occasionally broken by flashes of bright color. His therapist had encouraged the art as a way to express what he couldn't say, and over time his technique matured. The chaos grew more contained, the images more deliberate. I flipped through them in order, watching stick figures gain detail, watching abstract shapes slowly form recognizable landscapes. But when I reached the drawings from the past year, something changed. Jamie had found a style, still raw and emotionally charged, but with a haunting kind of precision. That's when I saw the pattern. In nearly every piece from the last 18 months, a small figure appeared, sometimes curled in a corner, sometimes perched at the edge of water, always alone. And in most of them, those same hands showed up, reaching, clawing, threatening. I might have dismissed it as a recurring image from a nightmare, if not for one detail: a signet ring on the left pinky finger, drawn with exacting care. A ring I knew all too well. Uncle Ray's ring. The one passed down from Grandpa, with the distinctive notch in the band from where it once snagged on a fishing hook. The same ring he'd been wearing the day of the accident, the day he took Jamie out on the boat while Mom and Dad were away at a wedding, the day Jamie stopped speaking. My phone buzzed beside me, jolting me so badly I knocked the box over. A text from Mom. Dinner in 20. Ray's joining us. I stared at the drawings now scattered across the attic floor, my heart pounding against my ribs. For 6 years, we'd accepted Uncle Ray's version of events. Jamie had leaned too far over the edge of the boat, lost his balance. Ray had pulled him from the water, performed CPR when Jamie wasn't breathing, saved his life. A hero's tale. But heroes don't show up as monsters in the nightmares of those they rescue. With shaking hands, I gathered the drawings, carefully selecting the 5 most detailed ones and slipping them into my bag. Downstairs, I heard the front door creak open, followed by the familiar, booming laugh of Uncle Ray as he greeted my parents. Dinner that night was agonizing. I pushed food around my plate while Uncle Ray commanded the room, his voice echoing through our childhood home as he recounted his latest fishing adventure. I couldn't stop watching his hands, the same hands from Jamie's drawings, and felt a slick of cold sweat gather at the back of my neck. "You're quiet tonight, Alex," he said suddenly, locking eyes with me across the table. "Something on your mind?" I forced a smile. "Just tired from the drive up." "You look like you've seen a ghost." His laugh was easy, familiar, the same one I'd heard my whole life, from the uncle who taught me to ride a bike and helped build my science fair volcano. Mom reached over and touched my forehead. "You do look pale, honey. Are you feeling all right?" Before I could answer, Jamie stepped into the dining room, his footsteps as silent as ever. He'd shot up in the last year, almost as tall as me now, though still all awkward limbs and adolescent edges. His eyes flicked to mine, then briefly to Uncle Ray, before dropping to the floor. "There's the artist," Ray boomed, swiveling in his chair. "Your mom showed me that landscape you did for class. Impressive stuff, kiddo." Jamie gave a small nod without looking up and slid into his seat, breast reaching for his water glass. His hands shook, just barely. Jamie's teacher thinks he might qualify for a summer art program at the state university, Dad said, his voice bright with pride. They've got accommodations for nonverbal students. Ray nodded, smiling. That's great news. Always knew the kid had something special. I studied Jamie's face closely. To anyone else, he might have looked indifferent. But I knew the signs. The tension around his eyes, the slight twitch of his jaw when Uncle Ray spoke. What do you think, Jamie? I asked gently, drawing his gaze. You interested in the program? Then reached for the notepad and pen he always kept nearby. With a few quick strokes, he scribbled something and slid it toward me. If you go with me. To the program? I asked, puzzled. He shook his head and wrote again. To check it out next week. Don't want to go alone. Of course, I said. I've got some vacation days saved up. I can stay through next week. That's so sweet of you, Alex, Mom said, smiling brightly. Jamie's been asking when you'd visit again. Uncle Ray lifted his wine glass, and my eyes were drawn, again, to the signet ring gleaming on his pinky finger. Good to see you two still close, despite everything. Family's got to stick together through the hard times. Jamie's pencil snapped in his hand. Later that night, I knocked gently on Jamie's bedroom door. He opened it without a word, and I stepped inside, taking a seat on the edge of his bed. His walls were covered with his art. Lush landscapes, abstract shapes, beautiful and vivid. Nothing like the drawings I'd found in the attic. I saw your drawings, I said softly. The ones in storage. His expression stayed flat, but his shoulders tightened. Jamie, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. I pulled out my phone and showed him the photo I'd taken. These hands, are they Uncle Ray's? His eyes went wide. He froze, utterly still for a few seconds. Then, slowly, deliberately, he nodded. Did something happen on the boat? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Something different than what Uncle Ray told us? Jamie reached under his bed and pulled out a sketchbook I hadn't seen before. It looked newer than the others, sleek, black, and unmarked. He opened it and handed it to me. The images inside made my blood run cold. They told a story, a sequential narrative sketched in charcoal and colored pencil. A boat on the water, a man and a boy, the man growing angry, grabbing the boy, holding him over the side of the boat. The boy's head submerged. Once, twice, 3 times. The final image showed the boy lying limp at the bottom of the boat while the man stood over him, watching. Jesus, Jamie, I whispered, my voice cracking. Is this what happened? Did Uncle Ray do this to you? Jamie picked up his pencil and began writing on a blank page. He said it was a game at first, to make me tougher. Then he got mad when I cried. My stomach turned. Why would he do that? Why would he hurt you? Jamie's hand shook as he wrote the next line. He said I saw something I wasn't supposed to at the boathouse the night before. I don't remember what. My mind reeled. 6 years ago. What could Jamie have possibly witnessed? Then it hit me. The week before the accident, Uncle Ray had been questioned by the police about a break-in at the marina where he docked his boat. Equipment had been stolen, the boathouse vandalized. Ray had been there that night, but claimed he hadn't seen anything unusual. The investigation had fizzled out. No arrests, no follow-up. Jamie, I said gently, did you ever tell anyone? Mom? Dad? Dr. Winters? He shook his head hard. Then wrote, he said he'd come back and finish what he started if I told. Said no one would believe me anyway. But the drawings, everyone thinks they're just nightmares, processing trauma. That's what Dr. Winters says. I closed the sketchbook, hands trembling. I believe you, I said, and I'm going to help. But we have to be careful. As I stood to leave, Jamie reached out and caught my arm. He scribbled one last note. He watches me sometimes. I see him parked outside school. What? When? Last week, and the week before. He knows I remember. I hugged him tightly, trying to hide the fear pulsing through me. It's going to be okay, I said. We'll figure this out. Together. Out in the hallway, I leaned against the wall, heart racing, head spinning with questions and plans that hadn't yet formed. Then I heard footsteps on the stairs. Everything all right, Alex? Uncle Ray's voice floated up, smooth and casual. You look like you could use a drink. I avoided Uncle Ray the next morning, claiming I had a work call to make. Instead, I drove 2 towns over to the public library, somewhere no one would know me. My fingers trembled as I typed, selective mutism trauma, drawing therapy, children's testimony. Hours passed in a blur. When I finally looked up, my notepad was covered in scribbles. Details about how trauma manifests in children's artwork, the credibility of nonverbal testimony, real cases where drawings had been used as evidence in abuse investigations. I learned that recurring motifs, like Jamie's exaggerated hands, were often seen in trauma survivors as representations of threat or danger. But information wasn't enough. I needed something solid. On the drive back, I stopped at a small cafe. After checking the room for familiar faces, I called my old college roommate, Elise, a child psychologist now. I need some hypothetical advice, I said after we exchanged quick pleasantries. Professional advice. Okay, she said, guarded. Go ahead. I gave her the basics, a sanitized version. A friend's younger sibling, nonverbal since a childhood accident, showing disturbing themes in artwork, possible repressed memory. The suspected abuser still close to the family. Hypothetically, she said after a beat, I'd say your friend should tread carefully. If you push too hard for a disclosure, you risk creating false memories or tainting potential testimony. But if the abuse is real, and especially if it's still happening, that child needs protection. Fast. And the drawings? I asked. Could they be misread? There are consistent patterns in trauma art, especially if they appear over time. Large, grasping hands, isolation, those are classic markers of threat, especially if the symbolism becomes more refined as the child grows. She paused. Alex, this isn't really hypothetical, is it? I swallowed. What's the first step, realistically? Document everything, she said. Note the dates, where the drawings came from, when they were made. Try to match them to events, changes in behavior, things the child said or did. And you need to find someone trained in trauma and nonverbal communication. Thank you, I said. It wasn't much, but it was a start, a direction. Before I could hang up, she added, Alex, if a child's in danger, hypothetical advice doesn't cut it. You need to act. When I got back to my parents' house, the kitchen was filled with the smells of garlic and herbs. Mom stood at the counter, slicing vegetables. Where's Jamie? I asked as casually as I could manage. In the garden with your dad. She glanced up briefly. Ray took his boat out this afternoon, said he'd be back for dinner. My stomach twisted. Mom, I began slowly, can I ask you something about the accident? Her knife stopped mid-slice. Even now, 6 years later, no one ever spoke about that day directly. It was always the accident. What happened on the lake? Never the truth. What about it? She asked, her voice deliberately even. Did the doctors ever conduct a full physical examination of Jamie? I mean, checking for other kinds of injuries? She frowned. Of course they did. He nearly drowned, Alex. I know, but I hesitated. Were there any injuries that didn't match just falling into the lake? Mom set the knife down and turned toward me completely. What exactly are you trying to say? I'm not sure, I lied. I've been having these weird dreams lately about Jamie, about what might have really happened. Her expression softened. Oh, sweetheart, I know you still carry guilt about not being there, but the doctors went over him thoroughly. Water in the lungs, a few bruises from when Ray did CPR. Nothing out of the ordinary. And his neck? His throat? There was some bruising there, yes, but that can happen with near drowning, something to do with the body's reaction to losing oxygen. She reached out, brushing my cheek. Ray saved him. If he hadn't been there... She trailed off. She didn't have to finish. I nodded and excused myself, saying I had another work call to make. Instead, I slipped into Jamie's room and left a small note on his pillow. Don't say anything to anyone yet. I'm looking into it. I promise I'll help you. That evening over dinner, Uncle Ray dropped a casual bomb. Thinking I might stay another week, he said. Maybe take Jamie out fishing. It's been a while since we had some quality time together. Jamie's face turned to stone, the blank, unreadable mask he wore whenever he was scared. Actually, I said, keeping my voice as steady as I could, we've already made plans. I'm taking him to visit that summer art program, remember? Ray's smile stayed put, but something behind his eyes went cold. Surely you can spare one afternoon for your old uncle? I taught you to fish, Alex. Feels only right. I showed Jamie the ropes, too. He's not into boats anymore, I said flatly, not since the accident. An awkward silence settled over the table. Mom and Dad exchanged glances, but said nothing. Well, Uncle Ray said after a moment, maybe another time then. Later that night, while everyone was winding down for bed, I overheard Ray talking quietly to my father in the hallway. I'm starting to worry about Alex, he said. Keeps bringing up the accident. asking strange questions. "They've always been close," Dad responded. "Alex still feels responsible. It's not good for either of them. Jamie's not going to heal if Alex keeps dragging the past back up." I slipped back into my room before they noticed me. My heart thudded in my chest. Ray was trying to create distance, to cut Jamie off from me. Worse, he was laying a foundation to discredit anything I might come forward with. I needed solid proof, and soon. That night, long past midnight, bedroom door creaked open. I bolted upright, pulse racing, only to see Jamie standing there, his frame silhouetted by the faint glow from the hallway. He was holding something in his hands. "Jamie? What is it?" He walked closer to my bed and handed me a small object, a thumb drive. "What's this?" I whispered, taking it from him. He mimicked typing on a keyboard, then pointed to the drive. "You want me to see something on here?" He nodded and silently slipped out of the room. I waited until I was sure everyone else was asleep, then powered on my laptop and plugged in the thumb drive. Inside was a single video file, time-stamped the day of the accident. I clicked play, my fingers trembling. The video was grainy, obviously from a security camera overlooking the marina. The timestamp read 6:47 a.m., just after sunrise. The footage showed the dock and part of the boathouse where Uncle Ray kept his boat. For a minute, nothing moved. Then two figures appeared, a man and a small boy. Even with the poor quality, I could make out Uncle Ray and 10-year-old Jamie. They were walking toward Ray's boat, but just before they reached it, Jamie stopped abruptly and pointed toward the boathouse. The audio was faint, but I could clearly hear Jamie's voice, the last time it had been recorded. "Uncle Ray, why is there blood?" Ray froze. Then he grabbed Jamie's shoulder, bending down to say something I couldn't make out. Jamie pulled back, shaking his head. Ray's posture changed. He straightened, scanned the area quickly, then hurried Jamie onto the boat. The video ended there. I sat motionless, staring at the frozen image on my screen. Blood. Jamie had seen blood at the boathouse the morning of the accident, the same boathouse that had been broken into the night before. My hands trembled as I copied the file to my laptop, then uploaded it to my cloud storage. This wasn't solid proof of what had happened on the boat, but it was evidence of something at the boathouse, something Ray didn't want Jamie to talk about. And hours later, Jamie had stopped talking altogether. The next morning, I told my parents I had errands to run and convinced Jamie to come with me. Once we were far enough from the house, I parked in an empty church lot and showed him the video I had watched the night before. "Jamie, where did you get this?" I asked when the video ended. He pulled out his notepad. "Marina has security cameras. I emailed them last month saying I was doing a school project about the accident. They sent me footage from that week." I stared at him, taken aback by his resourcefulness. "You've been investigating this on your own?" He nodded. Started remembering more last year. Didn't want to just draw anymore. Wanted proof. "Do you remember what you saw at the boathouse? The blood?" His face clouded and he wrote slowly, "Man on the ground, not moving. Uncle Ray standing over him. Blood on the dock." My heart sank. "Jamie, are you saying you think Uncle Ray killed someone?" "Don't think. No. Remember more now. He saw me see. That's why the boat." "And you didn't tell anyone all these years because he threatened you?" Jamie's eyes filled with tears. He wrote, "Tried to tell Mom once, drew it for her. She thought it was nightmares from almost drowning. Took me to Dr. Winters. So that's why you started drawing it over and over. I felt sick. You were trying to tell us." He nodded miserably. "Uncle Ray knows I remember now. Sees my drawings when he visits. That's why he watches me." I took a deep breath, trying to calm the fury building inside me. "Jamie, I need to ask you something important. The man you saw at the boathouse, would you recognize him if you saw a picture?" Jamie hesitated, then nodded. I pulled out my phone and quickly searched for news articles about the marina break-in 6 years ago. There wasn't much, just a few brief mentions in the local paper, no names of suspects, no follow-up stories. But then I found something else, a missing person report filed 3 days after the break-in. A man named Marcus Delaney, age 24, last seen at a bar near the marina. The article included a photo. I showed it to Jamie. "Is this the man you saw?" His face drained of color. He nodded slowly. According to the article, Marcus Delaney had never been found. The police had investigated his disappearance, but eventually classified it as a probable drowning after his jacket was discovered floating in the lake a week later. His body was never recovered. We need to go to the police, I said. Jamie's eyes widened in fear. He wrote frantically, "No proof I saw murder, just video of blood. Could be anything. My word against his. Can't even talk. But your drawings, just pictures. Could be nightmares. That's what everyone already thinks." He had a point. We needed more than a grainy video and a collection of disturbing drawings. We needed something that definitively linked Uncle Ray to Marcus Delaney. Then it hit me. The ring. Uncle Ray's distinctive signet ring that appeared in Jamie's drawings. He'd been wearing it in the security footage, too. "The night before the break-in," I said slowly, "did you happen to see Uncle Ray at the marina?" Jamie frowned, thinking hard. Then his eyes lit up with recognition. He wrote quickly, "Yes. Went to get something from boat. Saw him arguing with someone. With Marcus Delaney? Don't know. Dark. Couldn't see well. Jamie, this is important. Is there anything else you remember? Anything at all that might help us prove what happened?" He closed his eyes, concentrating. After a long moment, he wrote, "Uncle Ray's boat. Under the seat. Saw him hide something there day of accident, before he pushed me in. What was it? Metal box. Small. Locked." My mind raced. "And it's still there? After all this time?" "Don't know. Never been back on boat. I checked the time. Barely past noon. Uncle Ray had mentioned heading into town for lunch with an old friend. My parents would be at their book club until late afternoon. I think it's time we checked out Uncle Ray's boat," I said. Jamie's eyes widened, panic flashing across his face. He shook his head violently. "You don't have to come," I assured him quickly. "You can wait in the car. But I need to know what's in that box, Jamie. It might be our only chance to find proof." His hands trembled as he wrote, "Be careful. He hurt me. He could hurt you." I hugged him tightly. "I won't let that happen. To either of us. Not again." The marina was quiet when we arrived, a Monday afternoon in early spring, too cool for recreational boaters. I parked where Jamie could see the dock but remain hidden inside the car. I left him with my phone and strict instructions to call 911 if I didn't return in 20 minutes. Uncle Ray's boat, a 22-foot cabin cruiser named Second Wind, was exactly where it had always been, in the slip farthest from the main dock. I walked toward it with forced casualness, my heart hammering in my chest. The security camera that had captured Jamie and Ray 6 years ago was still there, mounted on a pole overlooking the dock. I pulled my baseball cap lower over my eyes. No one challenged me as I stepped onto the boat. It was unlocked, not unusual for the marina, where everyone knew each other and theft was rare. The cabin was neat and orderly, just as I remembered from childhood fishing trips. I moved quickly to the bench seat in the stern, where Jamie had indicated. The cushion lifted easily, revealing a storage compartment underneath. It was filled with life jackets, fishing tackle, and other equipment. I dug through it, finding nothing that resembled a metal box. Frustration and panic began to rise in my throat. Had Jamie been mistaken? Had Ray moved it years ago? I was about to give up when my fingers brushed against something toward the back of the compartment, a small indentation in the fiberglass. I pressed it, and a hidden panel popped open, revealing a second, smaller storage area. Inside was a metal lockbox, roughly the size of a hardcover book. My hands shook as I pulled it out. It was locked with a small padlock, but the hasp was flimsy. I looked around quickly, found a screwdriver in Ray's toolkit, and pried it open. Inside was a plastic bag containing a wallet, a set of keys, and a silver watch. I opened the wallet with trembling fingers. The driver's license inside bore the name Marcus Delaney. "Find what you're looking for." I whirled around. Uncle Ray stood in the doorway of the cabin, his broad frame blocking the exit. His expression was calm, almost resigned. "How long have you known?" he asked quietly. I clutched the lockbox tightly against my chest. "Jamie's been drawing what happened for years. We just didn't see it." Ray let out a heavy sigh. "I never wanted to hurt him, Alex. You have to believe that. It was an accident, the whole thing." "You tried to drown him," I said, my voice trembling with rage. "A 10-year-old boy, my brother." I panicked. He stepped further into the cabin. "Delaney broke into the boathouse that night. I caught him stealing equipment. We fought. He fell and hit his head on the dock. I never meant to kill him." "So you hid the body and carried on with your life? Let his family think he drowned?" "I made a mistake, a terrible mistake. But what happened with Jamie?" He stopped, his eyes hardening. He wouldn't stop talking about what he saw. Kept saying he was going to tell your parents. Tell the police. I just wanted to scare him a little, make him understand he needed to keep quiet. You held him underwater until he stopped breathing, I said, the words burning in my throat. And then you made yourself the hero by reviving him. I saved him, Ray's voice grew louder. I could have let him drown, could have told everyone it was too late, but I didn't. I brought him back. After you nearly killed him. He moved closer. His hands, those hands from Jamie's drawings, clenched tightly at his sides. What are you going to do, Alex? Go to the police? With what? A box of old drawings and some stuff I found in the water after Delaney drowned? You think they'll believe you after 6 years? They'll believe the security footage, I said, and they'll believe Marcus Delaney's belongings hidden in your boat. And they'll believe the medical report that shows Jamie's injuries weren't consistent with an accidental fall. That last part was a bluff, but Ray's face turned pale. You can't prove anything, he said, but there was uncertainty in his voice now. Jamie remembers everything now, I lied. Everything you did on that boat, everything you said, he's been writing it all down for months. Ray's expression darkened. Even if that were true, who's going to believe a mute kid who hasn't spoken in 6 years, his word against mine? Not just his word. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone, showing him the screen. The voice memo app was recording our entire conversation. Mine too. His face twisted with rage. He lunged toward me, reaching for the phone. I jerked back, but the cabin was too small. There was nowhere to go. His hand grabbed my wrist, squeezing so hard I gasped in pain. Give it to me, he growled. No. I held the lockbox tighter. It's over, Ray. Jamie's waiting in the car. If I don't come back, he's calling the police. You're bluffing. You wouldn't bring him here. Not after what happened. A small sound from the doorway made us both freeze. Jamie was standing there, his face pale but determined. In his hand was my phone, the real one, the one I had left with him in the car. Understanding flashed across Ray's face as he looked down at the phone in my hand, a decoy I hadn't used in months. Jamie, run! I shouted, using Ray's momentary confusion to break free from his grip. I shoved the lockbox into him hard, knocking him back. Jamie disappeared through the doorway. I heard his footsteps racing down the dock. Ray quickly recovered, his face twisted in fury. You two have no idea what you've done, he spat, advancing on me again. I backed up until I hit the wall of the cabin. There was nowhere else to go. We know exactly what we're doing, I said, trying to steady my voice. We're finally getting justice for Jamie and for Marcus Delaney. Ray's hand shot out, grabbing my throat. That man was a thief, he hissed. A nobody. And your brother was going to ruin my life over an accident. His grip tightened. Black spots swam at the edges of my vision. I clawed at his hands, feeling the sharp edge of his signet ring against my skin. Suddenly there was a commotion outside, voices shouting, footsteps pounding down the dock. Police! Don't move. Ray's grip loosened in shock. I gasped for air, slumping against the wall as he turned toward the door. 2 officers stood there, weapons drawn. Behind them, I saw Jamie, his face streaked with tears but resolute. On the ground now, one officer commanded. As they handcuffed Ray, I caught Jamie's eye. He pointed to the phone still clutched in his hand, then toward an older man in plain clothes standing on the dock. A detective, I later learned, who had been investigating cold cases, including Marcus Delaney's disappearance. Jamie had called the police the moment I left the car, showing them the video from the marina and the drawings he had brought. They had been watching us the entire time, waiting for my signal that I'd found the evidence. I'd never been more proud of my silent little brother. 6 months later, I sat in the back of a courtroom watching as Uncle Ray was sentenced to 15 years for the death of Marcus Delaney. The charge had been reduced from murder to manslaughter as part of a plea deal, one that included a full admission of what he'd done to Jamie. The attempted murder charge for what he'd done to my brother had been harder to prove after all this time, but the evidence had been compelling. Jamie's drawings, arranged chronologically by the prosecutor, the medical report that, upon re-examination, showed bruising patterns more consistent with forcible drowning than an accidental fall, Ray's own confession, captured on the recording I'd made on the boat. In the end, Ray had taken the deal rather than face a jury. Beside me, Jamie sat with his art portfolio open on his lap. He was working on a new drawing, a courtroom scene sketched in soft charcoal. His therapist had encouraged him to document the trial through his art as a way of processing everything that had happened. Mom and Dad sat in the row ahead of us, their shoulders touching, but their expressions distant. The truth had hit them hard, especially Dad, who'd grown up with Ray as his beloved older brother. They'd spent months in therapy themselves, struggling with guilt and betrayal. "All rise," the bailiff called as the judge prepared to leave the room. As we stood, Jamie's hand found mine. He squeezed it 3 times, our childhood code for "I love you." I squeezed back 4 times. "I love you too." Outside the courthouse, reporters stood waiting with cameras and microphones. Marcus Delaney's family huddled together in a tight cluster, finally receiving the closure they'd been denied for 6 years. His mother caught my eye and nodded slightly, a small but meaningful gesture of gratitude. "Are you ready?" I asked Jamie as we prepared to leave through a side exit. He nodded, then passed me his notepad. "Voice therapy starts next week." "That's great," I said, genuinely pleased. With Ray's conviction, Jamie had begun to show progress. His new therapist believed his mutism might not be permanent after all, might not work, might never speak again. "That's okay," I told him firmly. "You've made yourself heard in ways I never could. That's what matters." He smiled, a rare, full smile that reached his eyes. Then he wrote one more note. "Thinking about that art program again. Still come with me?" "Absolutely," I promised. "Wherever you need to go, I'll be there." As we walked to the car, I thought about the box of Jamie's drawings still stored in my apartment. The prosecutor had only used a fraction of them as evidence. The rest remained private. A visual chronicle of trauma too profound for words, and the silent testimony that had finally brought justice. Jamie had been right all along. But stay tuned, because in the next video, we dive into the dark story of a retired chef whose past holds a deadly secret. 14 soldiers poisoned. Was it an accident or something far more sinister? Click on the video on your screen to find out.